what I've been doing for women of Hong Kong, exercising empathy, self-awareness, being patient, being really patient, because trust me, running a network with a lot of women, you know, there's bound to be conflict. So there's a lot of patience, and honestly, I love it. But if I'm not bringing that part of me into my personal life towards my son, then I'm not being real about it. That.
Yeah.
Keep it casual.
Very casual. I mean, you know, when I started the podcast, I started because I love speaking to people. You know, I love getting to know people, and I wanted a career in public speaking. And I was like, what's the fastest way to do that while building a network? Okay, podcasting. Just do that.
Podcasting. I think it's perfect. It would be a shame if you didn't go for it. I've seen your videos.
Oh.
Love.
Thank you. What's your Myers-Briggs personality? Do you know?
Oh gosh. Is it odd to say that it changed 2-3 times? I can't recall which one. I just know it's purple.
Purple?
It's purple.
I didn't even know they had purple ones. Oh,
they
wait,
have
they did.
purple.
Oh, yeah. Are you an extrovert? You're an extrovert.
I'm a closet introvert.
Okay.
Weird to say because, I don't know, a lot of people don't assume I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
But half of the things that I've built under Women of Hong Kong has the introvert personality in mind.
That's
like
really
sometimes
interesting.
Do you have introvert friends?
I have several introvert friends.
Do you see that it might be difficult for them to socialize or network?
Yes.
They kind of quiet down and clam up.
Yes.
Or just don't even want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So now imagine an introvert trying to be an entrepreneur. How do you succeed? Difficult.
Entrepreneurship is multifaceted, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to have the ability to build something, and you need to have the ability to market at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think what you're referring to specifically is more on the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're an extrovert, you might be really good at marketing, but you might not be so good at building.
I don't know what that's like on that. Like I said, I'm a closet introvert. It comes off like I think I have extrovert traits.
Yeah.
But I relate more to introverts. I like to keep to myself when it's not work related.
I see.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we know each other, I suppose, more so on a professional capacity and professional level, more so than a personal level. And what I have noticed about your personal life is you do keep a very small circle around you.
Yes.
And I myself keep a very small circle of close, trusted people around me. But I identify as an extrovert. Okay. Because I do get energy from other people, but people also drain me out. And it's completely personality based. Yeah. It depends on what kind of person you are. You have to deal with, 6,500 personalities now with Women of Hong Kong. How are you managing that while also maintaining your mental health?
I would start with being very clear of my intention before I enter any conversation. And that's proven really useful for me because as a people pleaser back in the day, might still have a little bit of that, but as a people pleaser, I would lose myself in conversation trying to identify what the person across me wants. And then subconsciously, I develop my conversation notes based on what they might assume would be good conversation. That, will this person like me if I keep talking?
Yeah.
If yes, then I'll, So now, though, I would say, okay, I'm going to this conversation with somebody that wants to meet me for coffee because their intention is this. So I need to make sure my intention isn't to say yes to everything, but at least give them the space to say what they like, figure out if there's something we can do together. And that's how I would say that's how I've survived a lot of conversations and personalities, knowing that I don't attach myself based on what they would want. because I've lost myself too many times, whether it's in a business setting or a personal setting. I'm constantly thinking about, how do I make this person happy?
If you look at other people and how they live their lives, and if you're constantly just absorbing other people's energies, other people's personalities, then it's very natural to lose yourself. But what I find is difficult for a lot of people that I've spoken to, including myself at some point in time, maybe even now, is establishing what those values are in my life that are my own, that I truly value. Because having values, being a value-driven human being, being a value-driven person, it's easy to say, it's fun to say, but sticking by your guns and what you truly believe is difficult to do for anybody.
Especially when you're challenged for it.
That's when it's really tested.
Yeah, because you know that this person in front of you has opposing views. I see it in two ways. They have opposing views, so you need to have this level of self-control or self-awareness not to push them in the direction of believing your side. So, you know, that could get emotional. And then the second part is not being pulled into what their ideals are, again, because you want to make them feel comfortable. Discomfort is painful in conversations, but when you know how to navigate discomfort in conversations, even silence, like right now, uncomfortable for some, but when you're secure with yourself, you can contain that.
Yeah, I've noticed that on a lot of podcasts. Like, you'll have obviously on social media, when we cut up clips from podcast episodes, you have to make it really choppy because people are impatient. But when you watch the full length podcast, 3 hours, 2 hours, there are people who take their time to speak, and and there's something charming about it because I mean, it's not like everyone's brain is working like that. You know what I mean? People think ideas, and then it takes a little bit of time to digest and build on top of that in our heads. Yeah. Agree.
I used to be the person that, silence is so uncomfortable. I'd rattle on, even though the person in front of me is just, again, like you said, taking their time to think of the next question or just be immersed in conversation. So, you know, they're like, good one, good answer. And I'm like, but so I've learned that to stop doing that, to stop filling the air with conversation, is to really listen. Because if people continue rattling on in conversations, it could be because they're not really listening. They're too busy in their head thinking, I don't want to make him uncomfortable, and I'm self-projecting because silence makes me uncomfortable, so he must be uncomfortable, so I need to keep talking. And I don't know, psychology is fun.
I think a big reason why I wanted to speak to you on this show is because our first conversation was 10 minutes of us playing ping pong with psychology.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember which booth we were standing in front of, and it wasn't even Women of Hong Kong booth. It was like 3 booths away.
It was amazing, and I was like, wow, I really need to speak to this person when she has time. And so we have some time right now. I know Women of Hong Kong has been growing rapidly over a year and a half. Why did you start Women of Hong Kong, and kind of like what spurred Women of Hong Kong to even begin?
It might sound selfish, but I do believe people start businesses based on their own needs. And being a Filipina in Hong Kong, I'm neither classed as a local nor an expat, so the first need I had was to feel like I belonged somewhere. It could have been a subconscious need that I've had for a very long time, because when we met, I told you I just entered this phase in my life of self-awareness. It was like baby steps, so that was a year and a half ago. So I didn't really know I needed community, but I knew a part of me wanted it. And if I wanted it, I wonder how many other women want that too. The second was, I wasn't sure who to ask help from. Do I go to a business network or a Filipino organization, or, you know, there's all these questions of where do I start? Yes, I want help. So I've curated Women of Hong Kong in a way where it's easy for you to just start with asking a question just out there. And there's over 400 women in the chat. You're going to get at least one answer.
Sure.
And it's always redirection. So it was based on my needs. That's the first one. And the second was, it's always tough to answer why you started Women of Hong Kong. It was already in existence. I was a club manager, working for various restaurants and bars. My background's PR and events and branding. And, you know, naturally, I would connect with more women than my own personal network because they would come in for drinks and stuff. So I thought, why don't we create a tiny social group of women that just like to meet up and have a drink and happy hour, you know? It started with 12 women, and then it went up to 20, 30, 60, 100. Within about 3 months, we had over 200 or 300 women in a Facebook group. This was 2014. WhatsApp wasn't a thing yet. WhatsApp groups didn't even really exist. And then in 2015, we migrated from the Facebook group to WhatsApp. By then, the Facebook group already had about 2,000 women in it because it was so simple. Girls just socializing, having drinks after work, and, you know, women would bring their friends, their sister, their colleagues, and like, come with me. There's this group of girls that I drink with, and it just blew up. I liked that it was already in existence. I just didn't really do anything with it. It's our average girl group. Drinks here, brunch there, presents for mom, sister, recommendations, anything. But it wasn't until the protest started in Hong Kong and then COVID did I really see it as like, wow, this has potential to change anybody that's part of it in a good way, in a very supportive way, because the recommendations switched from, you know, brunch spots to cocktails to, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
You can swear as much as you'd like.
They were like, holy shit, I lost my job. I'm throwing my CV out there into the chat if anyone can help because I'm desperate. I've had women private message me, say, hey, my sister's in the group. I don't want to ask this because it will, you know, bring up red alarms or red flags, but could you ask if anyone has a divorce lawyer contact? Or there were so many real estate recommendations, licensing, shutting down a venue, losing my shop, having to pivot and create a virtual career because COVID shut down a lot of the shop. It was crazy. So we went from social fun group to a help hotline of women asking other women for help. And it was just about 180 or 200 in a WhatsApp group. So this went from 2018 till 2020. For 2 years, I was like, oh, this could be something. But on the side, I'm dealing with imposter syndrome. I was like, oh, I just got lucky with this network. I don't deserve to do anything with it. It was because I had a job in F&B. So, you know, who am I to say I own it? But now I can say, yeah, I ran that. I started it. So I am deserving of the good things coming my way. But I struggled. 2018, 19, 2020. I was like, I could make this into something nice, not because it was money-wise for me, but because women need something like this. And I think, like I said, I had that need of being part of something. Selfish need, but it was helpful, I guess. So in 2021, after 3 years of just, you know, teetering off the idea, I finally announced it to the WhatsApp group. I was like, hey, ladies, I'm going to build a website. It's very simple. The concept is simple. We're going to send this landing page to friends as a form of referral because everybody was home. Nobody was going out anymore. And all they have to do is put their email in, and then they automatically get a WhatsApp link to the chat. And they get to, oh my goodness. This was in February. I announced it in January, released a landing page in February, and when I released the landing page, they were like, you could do more. Can we meet up? Can we do virtual events? So then I sent out a survey, type form, free stuff. I said, okay, ladies, well, there's been requests of like adding a page or two to the website. I didn't really think much of it. And I sent it out. What would help you
Yeah.
when this community grew? What do you want this community to become? And I was very surprised at the answers and extremely grateful, because it wouldn't have been the website I built. I built the network based on what the members said they needed. So the top one was networking in both social and business. Number 2 was a place to list their business. You know, you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, but they wanted pages that would really show off what they built without them having to pay for media and press. And so I built that. I built the page. I coded it in a way where they could just submit their business listing. And it just pops up when you Google a member's business page. Even if they don't have a website, it shows up
Under the Women of Hong Kong directory.
Yes, which is now known as a, you know, female business-led directory of Hong Kong, which is very cool, because if you wanted to support them, it would be that. And then there's something about parents meeting up, single moms, kids, freelance jobs. I need freelance opportunities because, you know, my company closed down. I got fired. So I built all that. And it took me till August to launch. But from February till August, it just blew up. And that's, I think I met your dad in June when I went to the convention center. I had an iPad and the idea, and every single woman that would pass by, I'd say, hi, hello, can I get a minute of your time? And some of them are like, no. And some of them are like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not buying anything. I'm like, I'm not selling anything except an idea, and I promise you it's free. They're like, free? What is it? So I would rattle off about, like, can you imagine if you had access to a network that just belonged to you, and it was just women in the city that you're in, and you don't need to be anybody. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be of a certain age. You don't need to be Filipina or Australian or Nepalese. Like, nobody cares. It's just a chat. And it's just a network. And I kid you not, I don't know. I remember doing the math and I was blown away, because I think we got 200, no, not think, I'm very sure, I will never forget this number, 278 in-person signups over a span of 3.5 days, and our voice was gone. But it was like, whoa, we got nearly 300 women on board before the website released. And we told them that we're going to do a launch party, and it just kind of blew up. Sorry, I realize I rattled on. I get really passionate about the start of this network, because I wouldn't be here unless women said yes to the idea. And for every time someone congratulates me, like, you've done amazing, I'm like, honestly, I'd like to take that compliment, but I wouldn't be here if she didn't say yes, she didn't say yes, she didn't say yes. I built it, sure, but I don't own it. It belongs to everyone that said yes to it. And I'm always going to sing that tune. I'm always going to sing that tune. Yeah.
I mean, thank you for that. That was clearly you're very passionate. And I mean, I was doing another podcast episode yesterday of a guy who's running the Motorverse Corporation at Animoca Brands and Web3, and he was just like you. I mean, he couldn't stop talking about what he did, and that's exactly the kind of energy that you can't only have at the beginning, but you have to carry that throughout the entire process.
Yes.
You are essentially a key connector of people. And I've read and I've listened to a lot of podcasts, watched a lot of videos about how people start off building communities. And building communities is essentially about being that key connecting person that gets a lot of people to come together, and then they just take off and do whatever they have to do. And that's what you've done. What I think you've been really successful at isn't just connecting people, but also tying a brand into it so that people stay within that brand. And people don't just branch off and start doing their own thing that's very similar. And, you know, rallying people under this umbrella of Women of Hong Kong and maintaining it, that is something that I've personally been very impressed by. Because let's be honest and let's be real about this. Another person could come by and have the exact same idea, maybe branded a little bit differently. But how is Sarah V able to make sure that everyone stays within the brand and the brand grows internally?
I like that question. I was just chatting with somebody about it today, about what if somebody took all your ideas and did the same thing? And I said, look, I would say first thing, good, do it. We need more. I would never, ever say this is the best community and only community you should join. No, I would say it's great. But even within our network, I'm always encouraging people to go join others, you know, because it's a self-development network. You need to. This is how we're thriving.
Yeah.
Also, when you said that it's a successful community and I get to, it's really because there's parts of me that's often looking for what do you need, and I think that adds to the success of it. Again, I don't build things because I'm like, oh, I might like this.
Yeah.
I would think about it, and then I would go and ask, do you think we should do this? Do you think we should do that? And with your question, like how has with the brand, how have I maintained the success and got people to just really believe in it, is because it just goes back to that. Who I am as a person got challenged. You cannot, and I will say this again, you cannot build a community for people if you are not for people. The way you are as a person, and man, my growth was rough. And it's kind of like something I don't like saying out loud, but I would say it here.
Please.
I feel like this is such a safe space, and you know, I'm ready to say it. The person who I was 3-4 years ago would never be the woman I would sit with for coffee, lunch, or dinner. I wouldn't spend time with the old me. It was too difficult to sit with me. And I wasn't empathetic. I had a lot of narcissistic traits. And, you know, that's a whole other story, but it comes from difficult pasts. But just because a person has difficult experiences in their life doesn't mean they have the right to be an asshole.
Yeah.
So I saw that. I finally saw that with myself. And I said, I don't like who I am. Why would anyone want to be friends with someone like me? Self-realization, it's so tough because we never want to be wrong, right? And when we talk about the brain, we're like, your prefrontal cortex just shuts down the moment you're challenged. You know, the moment your beliefs are like, you believe this, that. No, I don't. You're wrong. And so you would even tell yourself, you're wrong. You're not wrong, but you're wrong for thinking you're wrong. So it's like, man, for me to maintain the network, it comes with me working on myself. Because how can I be empathetic towards other women, towards what they need, if I can't, you know, tune into that? And if I need the ability to tune into that, I need to start with myself. Am I kind with myself? Am I patient? Am I taking space in conversation to listen to you? If I can't listen to you, that's because I can't listen to myself. If I can't trust you, that's because I can't trust myself with my own decision. You know, you can only love people to the extent that you love yourself, and you can swap that word love with any other word. You can only be so patient, so proud of other people's success if you finally are proud of your own success. Yeah, so how do I maintain the network? Honestly, I have to do a lot of self-work and reminder of the intention of why I'm doing this. Is it for money? No, it was mission-driven. It still is mission-driven. Money's coming in, thankfully, abundantly, but it's never going to pull me away. I like what I do, and I said this yesterday to somebody. I'd gladly do this for the rest of my life. It makes me a better person.
I love how whenever I speak to other human beings, this idea of self-love always comes into conversation, because I literally had this conversation just yesterday where a lot of us use the same language to describe the experience of life. And the benefit of doing that is we all understand each other, and we all understand our shared experiences. But how I think it's a double-edged sword is by using the language that allows us to understand each other, maybe we're not forming the language that we need to understand ourselves. So that's a message that I kind of just want to put out there, because I love language. I love vocabulary. I love the nuance of language and words and what it could mean. But at the same time, when you are the type of person that has to interact with other people a lot, you have to absorb, you have to understand what other people are about. It's very easy to ignore what your needs are in life. And
absolutely.
And like you said, if you can't learn to love yourself, how are you going to learn to love other people, be happy for them? And everything shows on the face. You know? I mean,
you can't fake it. And if you do, you can't fake it for so long to be able to run something like this. Like,
precisely.
I knew that.
Precisely. And I've heard this with like all the Jay Shettys of the world, or the Lewis Howes, or anybody else that we might listen to. And you can't help but listen to these people sometimes and think, are they lying? Are they being true?
Is this a marketing strategy?
Is this a marketing strategy, right? Is everyone just singing the same tune because it works?
Yeah,
right?
Because everybody at one point was singing all praises of mental health, and it kind of died down. But, the people that are here for life, it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's consistent. I think that would be the key word. You'll notice if it's real, it's because it's consistent in their life outside of work. It's also at home. What I've been doing for women of Hong Kong, exercising empathy, self-awareness, being patient, being really patient, because trust me, running a network with a lot of women, there's bound to be conflict. So there's a lot of patience, and honestly, I love it. But if I'm not bringing that part of me into my personal life towards my son, then I'm not being real about it. Am I patient with my son? Am I empathetic? Am I bringing that into my relationships with my family? You'll see when people that sing songs about mental health, and ask yourself if it's real, go see their personal relationships. What are their personal friends, and what are their friends and family saying about them?
Sure.
And I can tell you, the start of Women of Hong Kong, I didn't talk to my sister for 2 years. Me and her, we had a bad relationship.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm saying this publicly. I love you, sis. But through the journey of building the network and advocating for mental health, I think she saw that from afar, and I saw myself being ready to reconnect with her. And, it's just different. It's just different when you do things in such an authentic way. I can't even stop it for myself if I tried. If I let my ego drive my decisions still, like before, I would not be speaking to my sister or my mom. But my ego, thank goodness, is, I'm more aware of it. I can make better decisions.
Sure. Because
my ego is driving my decisions before.
Sure. A big part of letting the ego slide is accepting that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
I find, because if you're unable to ask somebody else for help, let's say if it was in the context of Women of Hong Kong, there are women publicly asking for help, because COVID has dealt them the wrong hands, right? And of course, you can only be empathetic with people who allow themselves to be empathetic with. I don't even know if I phrased that correctly, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I understand.
Yeah. And look, I'm happy that you have reconnected with your sister. A few years ago, I did this self-development course that was very, very confrontational, and I'll explain why. It was confrontational because it was very confrontational because essentially the format of it was a room filled with let's say like 50 people.
Okay.
And everyone would be sitting in the crowd, and there would be one mic up on the stage. So you would be prompted, okay, somebody come up and tell us why you have a bad relationship, let's say with your sibling, right? Person would put their hand up. They would go up and they would list out, okay, my sibling called me an asshole when I was a kid in front of 100 people, and it really embarrassed me, but I forgave her. But then after that, you know, she used to make stuff up about me at home, and I would always get in trouble with mom or whatever. And it was this idea that over time we build stories about people in our lives, and it's very difficult to let go of stories, because at the end of the day, as intelligent human beings, life is just a story.
Yeah.
Our brains are just models of an external world in our experience.
Yeah.
So that whole weekend was just unlearning everything that we thought we knew about the people in our lives, and accepting that, hey, you can actually begin life with a fresh slate.
You need to let go of attachments.
Yeah. And while that sounds very monk-like, you know, I think even in practice, like, even though we're talking about it here on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
It might inspire a few people who are listening. But actually putting this stuff into practice in life is a very mindful process that is difficult. And you said it earlier, it's a consistent endeavor, day in, day out.
Yeah, I think what you said is perfect. It's true. And you can call it monk-like, or some people. I think it's much needed. Anyone that shies away from what you just said it just means that they have things that they need to work on that they're afraid to address, because that sentence alone, you know, that advice alone tells you to look at yourself and let go of things that have been keeping you. What was this? I think it was Rob Dial. It was like, anger is like letting someone live in your head rent free. Why would you do that? And not just anybody, a beggar, someone that's making your house all upside down. Why would you let this person stay rent free? So holding on to anger is holding on to attachment. And when you hold on to attachment, I mean, the psychology behind being attached is that it's a comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
And we, again, don't like being uncomfortable. Yeah. So we hold on to that. We hold on to this relationship because it's comfortable. Even though it's toxic, it's still comfortable. Don't want to know the unknown. And holding on to anger is it's a way of saying, like, oh, whatever hurt you, we're going to make sure it's not going to happen again, because, you know, your mind says, I'm going to make sure to remember every single time that you got hurt, and then I'm going to remember how you got hurt, so that the next time we detect something similar, we're going to shy away from it. And that's all attachment. Yeah. I could go on about that, but yeah. It hinders you. Attachment hinders your growth.
I am wondering, I mean, what is the most confrontational experience or experiences that you have running Women of Hong Kong that you consistently face, that you have to get over?
My intention. I've heard and I've seen messages speaking about my intention for the network and why I do it. And people have said, Sarah's running this because she's just really great at marketing, so it's quick money for her. Right. Or Sarah's doing this because she has no friends, so now she has a lot of friends. And I'm like, or many, right? But regardless of what it is, the idea behind it is my intentions are being questioned, and I'm happy for people to question my intentions, because it gives me the space to prove you wrong without trying. I'm just gonna keep going with what I'm doing, and you're gonna see, and I'm totally okay with that. And once you change your mind, please come and join us, because this is an all-inclusive women's network. I hold no judgment to anyone. It's just, well, I might judge you a little bit. I'm still human, right? But there's no restriction for me here. I've had people join the network that if me and her were in the same room, we wouldn't be talking. Right. But like I said, this is for everyone. Yeah. It's not a Sarah's network. It's a network for Women of Hong Kong.
I'm curious because, of course, I think position. I don't mean to use business terms to describe this community, but you know, this is just the language I know how to use. Positioning Women of Hong Kong in such a way where women support each other, right? Yeah. I think that's very intelligent, not from like a growth strategy perspective, but genuinely from the perspective that, hey, there are women out here who trust other women to help them grow, right? Makes me think about men. Makes me think about how men and women operate amongst themselves separately. And of course, I don't think it's fair to generalize and say that, oh, women are like bitches to each other and they don't support each other's growth, whereas men are always the bro code. Men support each other, this, that, and the other.
The bro code.
Right. It does make me
I love it. No, it's very true.
Genuinely does make me wonder, like, okay, Women of Hong Kong exists, growing, year and a half. Is there a man out there that is trying to do something very similar with Men of Hong Kong? And if they did, how would it be taken? And if anybody has come to you with that idea in the past, because I know you have a few guys in your close circle, your partner and his brother, his best friend. You opened a gym recently.
Yeah, with Jeff and Bruno. Yes, I mean, to answer your question, yes, I've had men come to me and say, I like what you do, I want to do it for men. And I've also had, and I think the meeting's happening a week or two from now, somebody that wants to really seriously do it. And I said the same thing to them. I said, make sure your intention for doing it is not a business, it's not a business goal. You don't just make a network so that you can sell products to. I've had people go like, you have such a wide network, let me give you commission. I'm like, I didn't build this for the commission. But if you buy memberships, that money goes to supporting like the minorities, the migrant workers, or the virtual assistants in the Philippines, which I hire virtual assistants so that we can get money to them. Or young girls. Anyway, sorry, back
please,
to...
I would love to hear that as well.
I'll definitely share. There's a lot that people don't really know about the network in terms of our activations. But to go back with men starting a community like this, I would say I've been asked to do it, and I said no, not because I don't want to, but because I don't believe I'm the right person to start it. I can advise in terms of the technicalities of it and building the site, sure, but I know some problems of men, but I don't understand it enough to be, and that would just be so selfish.
Sure.
Then I would definitely be making money. Yeah. But I'm not here to do it.
Yeah.
And the men that have said, I really want to do this, I've noticed two things. One is they're passionate about it because I see that they needed it too when they were younger. And again, this support network with women is because I needed it when I was younger. So it happened around me.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I noticed. They must have needed this when they were younger. And number two, they have the same fear as I hold that stopped me from building this. That took me 3 years. I can see it because then they also have fear of judgment. What will other men think of me if I make a men's support network,
Exactly.
Like, I feel like that stereotype needs to be taken down and shredded, and like just don't even think about it, because the people that judge you for building a community that helps anybody means that they have things to work on, and it just tells you how much this network is needed, because there are men thinking like that.
Yeah.
I kid you not. I've had a man come to me and say, what do you do for work? I run a network for women. What do you mean? Like a dance or dancers crew or something? I was like, no, just a support network for women. It's a community where women come together so we can share resources and just support each other, plain black. And he goes to me, he's like, why would we need that? Why would men need that? Why would women need a support network? Don't you have husbands and boyfriends? And I was like, see, that's exactly why men need to come together and help each other grow, or just work on that.
Sure.
Because it's not all men.
Yeah.
It's not all men, just like not all women are bitches or extremely emotional.
Yeah.
But there are some, and with a network like this, when they join it, they get influenced by others.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel sorry for this guy because he had a tough conversation with me for an hour.
Sure. I mean, I hope it was fruitful, because the thing is, a lot of these, I would say, misconceptions that men have about support there are misconceptions, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there are these ideas attached to support, like the fact that it might be emasculating to ask for support or help,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
as a man, you need to be strong, powerful, to support a family, to support your friends, to be the figurehead of your circle, and it's a lot of I don't know if I should call them unwritten rules, because they're not unwritten rules, but they are almost unwritten expectations on men.
Yes.
And I do feel like this is a big reason as to why we haven't seen a Men of Hong Kong group. That's one reason. And another one is because it might just be labeled off as like a boys club, you know, just a bunch of guys getting together and, you know, not including women.
Well, I'd like to believe, and honestly, I believe it will happen eventually. Just like, look, there weren't a lot of women that were able to have positions as leaders.
Sure.
There weren't a lot of women that were allowed to even start businesses back then. And here we are. So who knows, 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to happen. I know it. Yeah. If it's not in this next 10 years, it's going to be the one after that, because time will tell you what people really need. And a lot of people act based on traumas. Right? And but with social media and everything that's coming up right now, we're seeing all these problems, and we're seeing all these solutions that have existed for years and years and years, but nobody knew. People were just doing their own thing. I'm dealing with something. I think I'm the only one, so I'm not going to speak up about it. But now you have the internet. Everybody's speaking about situations. I mean, I have a friend that's running something called Million Meter Men, and they're raising money for testicular cancer. And you know, years back you'd laugh at that, but now it's like a whole thing, and a lot of people are participating. So I think when it comes to men coming together to do things that's much more than just a boys club, it's happening soon. And there is power in not looking strong. I know for a fact that the biggest factor why men don't want to do like health support systems in such a large scale is because it makes them look weak. But what people don't realize is being so open and honest about your weakness, aka being vulnerable, makes you so much more powerful, because then you can address your growth. Then you know which areas you need to work on for you. First of all, for yourself as a man. And then for your kids. They're going to watch you be vulnerable and be like, you know what? It's okay for me to be vulnerable, because I get to see the parts of me that I need to work on. Again, not to please people, but so I could be the best version of myself for me. What is a life like? How is a life lived if you haven't reached your highest potential? Can you imagine that, living a life just being a couch potato and being happy with that? I mean, I applaud you, sir, and you know, miss, if you like Netflixing all day all night for the rest of your life. But could you imagine just living the highest version of yourself, becoming that? I think that's awesome. But you can't without addressing vulnerabilities. You can't.
I think that's very well put. But I also think there is a lot of cultural implications that play into this, right? You and I both come from South Asian backgrounds. And of course, being raised in those societies, there are a lot of
challenges.
There's a lot of challenges when you're breaking out of the lessons that you've been taught from a very young age. Right? Because you're very impressionable as a child, but when you get out into the world, even with the internet, there are all these new ideas that are introduced to you, like vulnerability is a big one, right? As a man, of course, the old school way of thinking is you shouldn't embrace your vulnerabilities, at least not publicly. At least not publicly, because it makes you seem weak. And if you are weak in the eyes of other people, then you lose your respect. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that still rings true. But like you were saying earlier, it depends on who is receiving the message. Because if a person is receiving the message in a way where they're responding with criticism, maybe they have to take a look at themselves, because maybe there is something that's unanswered in their own life. And with women, I know it's a completely different set of rules, expectations, which I've proven to myself that it's not that I'm unaware, but I'm not as sensitive in that, awareness of what a woman might be going through, especially if she's from a South Asian background, and what kind of cultural barriers she has to overcome when going out into the world. And if she doesn't want to get married, she wants to go and build a career for herself, if she wants to do anything apart from what's expected of her. Yeah. For you, has that been a difficult journey?
A little, I'd say a little bit, not to a point that it bothers me. I think I definitely didn't, let me just word this properly. Things I did definitely were not what people expected me to do. Their expectations, most of people's expectations of me, were much, much further than what I've achieved today. And that includes myself. I didn't think I'd be here. But, holding on to these expectations of people, it's restricting. And like you said, maybe somebody doesn't want to get married, or maybe they're married but they want to build their own business. Expectations just hold you back. That's really all I can say. Like, what do you want for yourself, regardless of your family, the cultural background? And yes, I understand the difficulty of doing it, because nobody wants their family to be disappointed, right? That goes back into what you were saying. Like, if you are seen as weak, you lose respect. So I wanted to add to that, where I want to touch up on respect. Respect is different from every single person. What you might respect might be different from what I respect. But I think instead of changing people's perception of what women should do, shouldn't do, or what men should do, what they shouldn't do, is educating people of what is respected. Is it respected? Would women be more respected being in the kitchen? So, okay, if that's your idea of respect, I'm going to stay in the kitchen because I want to be respected, right?
Sure.
But then it's challenging that idea of respect.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different level of respect for themselves, or like what they deem as respect. And like you mentioned, it's cultural. It's different.
Yeah.
And it's just bringing that all up to the surface and making sure that everybody is, happy in their own skin. But that's such a long, big goal. We'll get there. Yeah, I think segregating men and women, just purely that is just, I just feel like the wrong way to go about it language-wise. Like, it's so binary, men, women. Yeah,
At the end of the day, we are all individuals. We all have our own likes and dislikes, what we want out of life for ourselves.
Yeah. I think just as long as you respect what other people are doing, in a sense where, they're not hurting anyone. By all means, just go as you please. And same for me. If what I'm doing doesn't hurt people, then, let me be. Yeah,
for sure. I think we're coming close to the end of our episode. I ask this question at the end of every episode. We're all in a place in life right now that where we might be happy with ourselves, or a place where we might not be so happy, a place where we want to create the opportunities for improvement for ourselves or maybe people in our lives. But at the same time, they say that you should, to understand the future, you should learn history. I think all of us have been alive for long enough that we have our own history that we can learn from. And maybe a lot of us don't spend enough time thinking about our own history and the contexts and situations that we've been put in, our reactions in those situations, how things could have gone differently. But if we were to study our own lives, maybe it would help us inform our future. Yeah. So my question is, if you could send a message to a past version of yourself, what would it be? And what kind of conversation are you hoping to have with your future self?
To my past self, I would say learn what boundaries mean. That would be the first thing. It will save you a lot of trouble, anxiety, and heartache if you set boundaries, because people pleasers don't know what that means. That would be my message. Set boundaries and everything else will start to fall into place. Respect for yourself, the time you spend with certain people. You know, you don't just say yes to everything, because yes is a currency you can never, saying yes to everything, that's like time is a currency you could never get back. It's a resource that's just not something you can keep buying. Yeah, that's my message to my past self. To my future self, I'm excited to meet you. I'm excited to see where we're going, because I know we're going to good places because we have good intentions for people. I know I have good intentions for people. And if anybody, like I said, if anybody thinks otherwise, I'm totally okay with that. Please address that in your own time. And I look forward to seeing just people grow. There's so much abundance. Like, there's no limit for, if I succeed sometime in my lifetime, it doesn't take away from your opportunity to succeed. What it does is it just tells you it's possible and you can do it too. Yeah. So that's my message to my future self. I'm excited to see where we're going. And to my past self, please set boundaries. It'll save you a lot of time and heartache.
That's beautiful. I mean, that message really resonates with me. And I think mics and cameras can only pick up so much. But I do want to say that sitting across from you for as long as we have has been a very warm experience.
Thank you.
I really love the energy that you have inside of you. Clearly very passionate. And I would really hope that you protect that with your life.
I will. Thank you. And I just want to say, I can't be this comfortable and warm unless the person right in front of me is an equal mirror of that. So props to you, and thank you. Thank you so much for carving out time for me to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on to the Nomadic mic.